I could feel my heart pounding as I climbed the marble staircase to the address on the listing. The building alone screamed unaffordable, but desperation had led me here, to an apartment I knew would be way beyond my student budget still. I needed to see it. 3 rejected applications and a looming deadline to vacate my current place had left me with few options. Before we jump in, if you're enjoying stories like this, please take a second to like and subscribe to the channel. It's completely free and helps me continue creating content you'll love. Thanks for your support. Now let's get back to the story. The door opened before I could knock, and there she stood, Mrs. Parker. The listing hadn't mentioned that the landlady would be this striking tall with dark hair touched by elegant strands of silver and eyes that seemed to evaluate everything they fell upon. I suddenly felt underdressed in my worn jeans and simple blouse. Zoe Davis? Her voice matched. Her appearance, refined, confident, with a hint of something I couldn't quite place. Yes, that's me. I'm here about the room. She stepped aside, gesturing for me to enter. Come in. I've been expecting you. The apartment was even more beautiful. Than the photos, sunlight poured through floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating hardwood floors and tasteful modern furniture. Art adorned the walls, not prints but originals. This place wasn't just out of my budget, it was out of my league. It's stunning. I admitted, trying to hide my disappointment. There was no way I could afford this. Mrs. Parker smiled, something knowing in her expression. But not within a student's means? That's what you're thinking, isn't it? I nodded already. Reaching for my bag, I should have checked the price more carefully before wasting your time. I haven't told you the price yet, she said, her voice stopping me in my tracks. At least not what I might charge you. I don't understand. She gestured toward a pristine white couch. Sit. Let's discuss terms. I perched on the edge of the sofa while she poured 2 glasses of water from a crystal decanter. Everything about her movements was deliberate, graceful as if she were performing. Rather than simply existing in her space, I occasionally rent to select individuals. She explained, handing me a glass. The listed price is flexible depending on certain arrangements. What kind of arrangements? I asked, suspicion creeping into my voice. She laughed lightly. Nothing illegal, I assure you. I'm a teacher of sorts. I offer lessons, and in exchange I adjust the rent accordingly. Lessons in what? I'm already taking a full course load at the university. In things they don't teach at any university. Her eyes locked with mine. Life skills. You might say the kind that open doors money can't. I shifted uncomfortably. I'm not sure I understand. You're young, bright, and beautiful, she said matter-of-factly. But those qualities alone won't secure the future you deserve. I teach refinement, confidence. The art of connection. Like finishing school? I asked, still confused. Her smile deepened. More intimate than that. I could charge you half the tea. Listed rent in exchange for your participation in my lessons. Half the rent would bring this place within my desperate reach. But something about her offer felt too good to be true. What exactly would these lessons involve? Observation initially, then practice. I have various associates who assist me. She took a sip of water, watching me over the rim of her glass. The first lesson would be tomorrow evening at 8. You'd be required to watch and learn. Nothing more. Watch what? Exactly? Her expression remained calm, unreadable. The art of meaningful connection, physical and otherwise. The implication slowly dawned on me, heat rising to my cheeks. You mean, I mean exactly what you think I mean. She set her glass down. I'm not asking you to do anything tomorrow except observe. After that, if you're uncomfortable, you can leave with no obligation. I should have walked out then. But the thought of going back to my fruitless apartment search, of potentially having nowhere to live in a week's time, kept me rooted to that pristine white couch. Half the rent? I confirmed, my voice barely a whisper. Half, she nodded. And the chance to learn skills that will serve you far beyond your university education. I took a deep breath. When can I move in? Today, if you'd like. She stood, extending her hand. Lesson 1 begins tomorrow evening. I shook her hand, trying to ignore the flutter of anticipation. Or was it anxiety? In my stomach, I'll be here. The following day passed in a blur as I unpacked my meager belongings in what was now my room. A space 3 times larger than my previous apartment, with its own ensuite bathroom and a view of the city that made me dizzy by evening. I'd almost convinced myself that I had misunderstood Mrs. Parker's implications completely. At precisely 8 o'clock, a knock came at my door. Mrs. Parker stood there, transformed from the elegant but businesslike woman of yesterday. Her hair fell in loose waves, her makeup subtle but enhancing her simple black dress, revealing just enough to hint at the form beneath. "It's time," she said simply. I followed her to the living room, which had been subtly altered. The lighting was dimmer. Music played softly from hidden speakers, and a bottle of wine breathed on the coffee table. "Our guest will arrive shortly," she informed me, gesturing to a high-backed chair positioned in the corner. "You'll sit there, observe everything. My posture, my words, my movements. Don't interrupt, don't speak unless spoken to directly. Simply watch and learn." The doorbell rang precisely at 8:15. Mrs. Parker gave me one last meaningful glance before going to answer it. I sank into the designated chair, heart racing, wondering what I'd agreed to. The man who entered was perhaps 30, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit, with the confident bearing of someone accustomed to being in charge. He greeted Mrs. Parker with familiarity, but not overly so. "Respectful, admiring James," she said warmly, accepting his kiss on her cheek. "Thank you for joining me tonight." His eyes flicked briefly to me. "You didn't mention company. This is Zoe, my new tenant. She's observing tonight. Nothing more." Mrs. Parker's tone left no room for negotiation. "Is that acceptable?" He considered me for a moment, then nodded. "As you wish." What followed was unlike anything I'd witnessed before. Mrs. Parker guided their interaction with subtle mastery. The way she poured his wine, leaning just enough to draw his eye. How she listened when he spoke, giving him her complete attention while maintaining an air of gentle mystery. The calculated touches, fingertips grazing his arm, to emphasize a point, brushing imaginary lint from his shoulder. I watched mesmerized as she demonstrated the art of connection. Nothing was crude or obvious. Every movement, every word seemed choreographed to build tension, to create an invisible thread pulling them closer together. When she finally kissed him, it seemed as inevitable as a tide coming in. Her hand rested lightly on his chest, her eyes meeting his with quiet invitation before she leaned in. The kiss itself was unhurried, intentional, a conversation without words. As it deepened, I felt I should look away, but remembering her instructions, I forced myself to observe. His hands moved to her waist, drawing her closer. She allowed it momentarily, then gently established distance again, leaving him wanting more patience. She murmured, her voice carrying clearly to where I sat. Their dance continued, approach and retreat, give and take. At each step, she remained in control, even when appearing to surrender it. She guided him to the sofa, where their embrace grew more heated. Clothing loosened, breath quickened, but there remained an artfulness to it all that prevented it from feeling vulgar. I watched as she moved with him, how she responded to his touch with soft sighs and subtle guidance. There was nothing passive in her surrender. She directed their connection with the lightest pressure of her fingers, the arch of her back, the cadence of her breath. When they finally moved together completely, it was with a grace that transformed what could have been merely physical into something profound. She maintained eye contact, creating a connection beyond the body. Her movements were deliberate, measured, building a rhythm that left him completely captivated, following her lead, even as he believed he was taking charge. Afterward, as they lay together catching their breath, she smiled at him with genuine warmth. "Thank you, James, that was lovely." He laughed softly. "I should be thanking you." She kissed him once more, then rose with unhurried elegance, gathering her dress. Next time, perhaps, the dismissal was gentle but clear. Within 15 minutes, he had dressed, exchanged pleasantries, and departed, looking both satisfied and eager for another invitation. Once the door closed behind him, Mrs. Parker turned to me, completely composed. "And that, Zoe, was your first lesson?" Questions. My mind raced with 1,000 thoughts, but I managed only one. "How did you remain so in control? She smiled, pleased. With the question, control isn't about domination. It's about understanding desire, yours and theirs, and orchestrating its expression. True power comes from knowing exactly what you want and creating circumstances where giving others what they want leads to your own satisfaction. And what happens in the next lesson? I asked, my voice steadier than I expected. Next time, you'll participate. Not fully, not yet, but you'll begin to practice what you've observed. She approached. My chair, her perfume still mingled with the scent of what had transpired. Unless, of course, you'd prefer to pay the full rent. I thought about my near-empty bank account, about the confidence with which she had moved, about the look in James's eyes. Not just desire, but admiration. Respect, I'll stay. I said, excellent. She touched my shoulder lightly. Next lesson. Friday at 9, wear the green dress in your closet. I took the liberty of providing it. Over the next weeks, my education progressed. From observation to participation. Mrs. Parker guided me through increasingly complex lessons. First with James again, where I joined their conversation, practicing the subtle arts of engagement under her watchful eye. Then with another of her carefully selected partners, this one teaching me how different personalities respond to different approaches. Men are not all the same. Mrs. Parker explained one evening as we debriefed, neither are women. Each person has their own language of desire, their own pathways to connection. Learning to read these quickly to adapt while remaining authentic, that's the true skill. I proved an apt student. What had initially shocked me gradually became fascinating, then empowering. I wasn't just learning about physical intimacy, I was learning confidence perception, the ability to truly see another person and connect with them on multiple levels. By the third month, my lessons had grown more complex. Tonight we have 2 guests. Mrs. Parker announced as I entered the living room in a midnight blue dress she'd selected, Marcus and David, business partners with complementary but distinct personalities. What's my role? I asked, no longer hesitant but curious. You'll lead, she said simply. I'll observe and guide only if necessary. The evening unfolded like a dance. I was now learning to choreograph myself. I greeted the men with newfound assurance, engaging them in conversation that revealed their characters. Marcus ambitious and direct, David thoughtful and observant. I adapted to each, mirroring Marcus's energy, while drawing out David's deeper insights. Mrs. Parker watched from the periphery, her slight nods confirming when I'd made the right choice. Touch here, a laugh there, the careful balance of attention between them, to create not competition but shared anticipation. When the moment came to move beyond conversation, I found myself not nervous but exhilarated. I understood now what Mrs. Parker had meant about control, not forcing or manipulating but creating a space where everyone's desires aligned, where connection flourished because each person felt truly seen. I guided them as I had been guided, maintaining the delicate balance between them, ensuring neither felt secondary. Mrs. Parker had taught me well how to move, how to touch, how to create moments where vulnerability became strength. Afterward, as they departed with lingering glances and promises to return, Mrs. Parker approached with approval in her eyes. You've surpassed expectations, Zoe. I had an excellent teacher. She laughed softly. You had natural talent, I merely refined it. She handed me a glass of water. But there's one more lesson. Before your education is complete. What more is there to learn? I asked, genuinely curious. The feminine connection. She held my gaze. Different energy entirely, more intuitive, often deeper. Sunday evening, her name is Claire. Sunday brought not just Claire, but a revelation. Where my connections with men had been about balance and counterpoint with Claire, there was harmony, an instinctive understanding that required fewer words and more presence. Mrs. Parker joined us, not just observing, but participating, showing me how women connect with a different language altogether, more fluid, more attuned to subtle shifts in energy and response. The mistake many make, she explained later, is approaching everyone with the same techniques. But true mastery comes from adaptability, from sensing what each unique connection requires, and providing it without losing yourself in the process. 2 weeks later, Mrs. Parker presented me with an envelope over breakfast. your final exam, if you will. Inside was an invitation to an exclusive gathering at a penthouse downtown hosted by someone whose name I recognized from business magazines and society pages. Am I ready for this? I asked suddenly, feeling like the uncertain student. Who had first arrived, Mrs. Parker smiled with genuine warmth. More than ready. You'll find many of my former students there, all successful in their various fields. This isn't about intimacy alone, Zoe. It's about connection, the currency that truly powers the world. And after this, your education is complete. You can continue paying half rent as we agreed, or, she paused, you may find you have more lucrative opportunities. The night of the gathering I stood before, my mirror hardly recognizing the woman who looked back. Not just because of the elegant dress or the subtle makeup, but because of the confidence in her eyes, the certainty in her posture. Mrs. Parker appeared in the doorway. Beautiful. She said simply, "Thank you." I replied, meaning it in ways that went far beyond the compliment, for everything. You're about to enter a world few get to see. She said, remember what you've learned, not just about others, but about yourself. That's the true gift. As we left the apartment together, I realized she was right. Beyond the techniques and the experiences, I had discovered my own power. Not power over others, but the power that comes from truly understanding connection, from being fully present with another person in all the ways that matter. Walking into that gathering, I wasn't just Mrs. Parker's student anymore. I was a woman who had received an education no university could provide. One that had taught me not just about desire and intimacy, but about human nature itself. Have you ever had a mentor who changed your life completely? Someone who saw potential in you that you couldn't see yourself? What lessons did they teach you that went beyond the obvious? Share your experience in the comments below. I read every single one. And if this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more content like this. Turn on notifications so you don't miss my next upload. Thanks for listening. And I'll see you in the next story.